Hey everybody, this is Cammie Westall with the exciting aforementioned lecture on the growth of New England. So now we're super behind because we had the ice storm and I'm in jury duty, so I don't know I may have to post another one of these. Anyway, I'll try to do this kind of incrementally, but you can stop and pause and review this as much as necessary as we look kind of at the growth of New England. So the northern colonies, we talked about the Chesapeake area being kind of Virginia and then Maryland when Maryland developed, but now looking at the colonies up north in colonial New England. And it's going to be very different from Jamestown because Jamestown was more of an economic venture, and New England is going to be founded by the Puritans. So the Puritans, let's get it, to understand who they are, we kind of have to understand the religious turmoil and situation in England. The official church in England is called the Church of England, so at least you can remember it that way. Same thing as the Anglican Church, so you can these are synonymous. You can say the Church of England or the Anglican Church, the Church of the Angles, because it's established by the Anglo-Saxons there. Okay, this church started during the 1500s and the 1530s when England is in the Reformation and King Henry VIII got rid of the Catholic Church. So what happened is that you kind of had, now this is not fully accurate, but to try to give you a little bit of an understanding, it's kind of like if you had let me draw a little fancy timeline there, or not really a timeline, but you kind of have the Church of England over here. Let's say you had the Catholic Church over here, and then you had the Protestant Church over here on this side. So you've kind of got these three different divisions going on, and what happened is when the Reformation started, you had I misspelled Catholic. That is, there's an O in there, Catholic. That makes it so much clearer right there. Okay. The Catholic Church is kind of had been the traditional church, and what's happening now is they were big on saved by faith and good deeds, very ceremonial, traditional, and kind of some general trends there. When the Protestant church started under Martin Luther, their big thing is you're not saved by your works, your good deeds. You're saved by faith alone. The Catholic Church had been adding things that you had to do, adding sacraments. They believed lay people or commoners should have access to the Bible. So this is very different, whereas the church is saying, okay, only the priests and the Pope can explain to you what is in the Scripture or the Bible. They're saying, no, everybody has the right to understand that. So the services are oriented more around the Scriptures, kind of less ceremonial than the Catholic Church. And it's less hierarchical as far as you didn't have a pope and the archbishops and the bishops. So there were some differences here between these two movements, but the big ones being Scripture and then saved by faith alone, not faith and these good deeds that you're expected to do. So the Church of England, so these two were established first. This had been around for a long time, and then in the 1520s, this started, and then the Church of England is formed, and it's kind of in between both. It's got some aspects of the Protestant church and some aspects of the Catholic church. Okay, the Puritans, then, to say what is going on, the Puritans wanted to its Catholic remain from its from purify the church from any Catholic influence. They wanted to purify the Church of England. Puritans wanted the Church of England to be more Protestant. They wanted it to move over here instead of being a closer tie-in between the Protestant and the Catholic Church. So you have Puritans, and then you have separatists as well, who kind of tie into the Puritans, but you'll hear that term. And the separatists, they have the same beliefs kind of as the Puritans. They want a more Protestant church, but they think, we've just got to start over. We have to separate from the Church of England and start our own church. So, you may hear my phone ringing in the background. I'm not going to answer it because I'm focused on you guys. So these are the terms, and it's going to be these kind of Puritan separatists who are going to try to leave England. They're given permission to go start their own community based on their beliefs in the New World. So if we go back then here, the Puritans are a religious-based community. They take off on the Mayflower. They actually started with 2 ships, ended up on just 1 ship. This had originally been a cargo ship. It wasn't huge. It certainly wasn't one of these luxury cruise liners. It takes them a long, long time to travel, but they will land in Plymouth in 1620. So this group of kind of separatists land in Plymouth, Massachusetts. 10 years later, you have more Puritans come and settle Boston. This is confusing because New England is kind of this whole northeastern area where the mouse is moving. But this gets confusing because now you say, okay, wait a second, both of these cities are in the state of Massachusetts, but they start as 2 different colonies. Plymouth, very close to that muscular bicep, well, the skinny little wrist of Cape Cod. But Plymouth is where, in 1620, the Pilgrims land. So the Pilgrims, didn't even add that in, are like, the Pilgrims are these people kind of on their spiritual pilgrimage, these Puritan separatists wanting a new start. So that's who the Pilgrims are. They immediately have to, before they even set foot on land, the Pilgrims, these Puritan separatists, have to sign the Mayflower Compact agreeing to a form of government. This is another thing important as we get towards the American Revolution, colonists proving that they can govern themselves. The Pilgrims landed way farther north than they expected to. They thought they'd be closer to Virginia. But a charter establishing kind of a civil government, all people agreeing to obey the laws there. So they land in Plymouth, and they land in November. Never lived up north in November, but still I think most of us know it gets cold there. So terrible, just like it was bad for the settlers to land in Jamestown in May, now it's going to be pretty miserable to land in Massachusetts in November, just in time for the winter. They stayed pretty healthy on their long, arduous trip across the ocean. Only 1 person died and 1 baby was born, so they kind of came out even. But things get bad. They have a rough winter. The ground is frozen. They survived that year largely thanks to the help of some Native Americans, particularly one who knew how to speak English named Squanto. And so they're giving, so December of 1620, the first few months of 1621, those were hard. A lot of people died. But they befriend some local Native Americans. Squanto had been kidnapped at one point, but learned how to speak English from his captives. So he helps the colonists learn how to grow corn. He helps them learn how to fish. And so they're giving thanks to God in 1621, that fall, that they have the next year they'll have enough food to survive the winter season there. This was a very short segment, but I'm going to go ahead and break, and then I think I'll just have to do these in increments because I've got to get to my next class. So lucky you. But here's our first installment from what we missed in the snow.